Hi there. We're back in business today. Let's do some streaming. So it's a rainy Sunday afternoon today here in the Netherlands. The missus is away, so I have a few hours to kill before the Formula One race starts. And there are a couple of things that I would like to look at in the chatbot that we've been building the last few weeks. So I thought, well, let's share it with you as well while I go ahead and make those changes. Yeah, so let's dive in right away because my fingers are aching to get started. I have set up a backlog of items that I want to work on. Last time they were still in Dutch, so I thought, well, let's make sure that they are in English, or you're also better able to follow me. And the main thing today on the agenda is, first of all, error logging. So we have been running our bot in production for about a week now, and we are using the proactive dialogues. And on a certain time of the day, we send out a question to a subset of our employees, and they need to respond. And the feedback that I got is that some of them occasionally receive a message that says something went wrong. So the bot is actually sending them a message, something went wrong. But that's only happening once in a while for a few of our employees. So we better need to understand what's going on, and at the moment the error logging is not really that great, or maybe not existent at all. So that's what I wanted to look into first today, because first we need to understand what's going on before we can fix it, and that's actually step 2 on the backlog. So we want to fix that bug, but first we need to understand what's going on. So let's dive into this, and in order to do that, first of all, let's go to our demo so that we can actually talk to our bot and make sure that it's still working and it's still talking to our development version. So here we have in the pink icon, that's our test bot, and we can use that bot to test against our local dev environment. So let's just say hi, and that should result in a post message that you see here, and it's okay. So that means that it's still talking to my local dev environment, and it's saying hey back. Perfect. So we can start doing our work now. So one thing, I've set up our bot based on a sample, and one of the things that I know is in here is the adapter with error handler. And basically this adapter that's causing that message to be sent. So when something goes wrong within a turn, this particular piece of code is run. And you notice that we log the error, but currently I do not really know where that error gets logged to. So we need to figure out what default logging locations are. And it's trying to clear the conversation state. I'm pretty sure that that's not really working each time now, so that's also something that I may want to look into, but we also may want to have a separate item on the board to fix that. Most important thing is, where's this going? And obviously this is very limited information to work on, so we may want to log more information. So we need something to actually trigger this so that we can actually see this being run, so that we can investigate. So let's see, how can we force this thing to actually error out. And one option would be to in our main dialog, or maybe even in our bots, have something to actually trigger an error. So maybe we want to have something like this, that we can say / exception, and that it's trying to do an exception. This in the on turn, so maybe let's do that. Let's stop so we can make changes. If turn context dots activity text equals / exception, then throw new exception testing simulating an exception. Alright, so if we run this and we type in / exception, I expect the bot to return to me that something went wrong. So it's starting up now. It's running here. Let's give it a second to run. Come on, there we go. Now let's try it out. Exception. Boom. Exception. Sorry, it looks like something went wrong. Perfect. So now we are able to simulate exceptions. And it ran this logger. So do we set that up in our startup, that logger? So where is it actually logging to? I don't think so. Oh, I just want to search here. So let's try to figure that out. This is for the old version. maybe it's not even specific to the bot framework, but maybe it's specific to maybe it's in the program. Default HTML core project templates core create default builder. That's I think also what I'm doing. Create default builder, exactly. So I get the following logging providers by default. So we have a console log, debug log, event source, and event log. So that means, yeah, exactly. So this is the console log. Here we can see the exception. And we have the debug log, which should mean that over here we should also see the error. This message. Here it is. Exception thrown. Maybe that's the this is the one. No. Exception caught. Simulating an exception. Is that what it's telling me? It's exception caught, and then message of error. Okay. But we also have an event source and an event log. Let's see what other logging providers we have available. First of all, we have also, so we have seen the console, we have seen the debug logging providers. For event log makes sense. So if I go to the event viewer, and I'm not really sure if it would work, but I am on Windows, so it should work. We should have the same exception here as well. If it's finally ready to finish loading. Is it this one? No. I don't see it here. Could be the reason since I'm running in Kestrel. Maybe that's because it's cross-platform. It's not necessarily including event log, but I'm not really interested in event logs. A bit of an outdated version of logging source. What is event source? Can implement event tracing. Windows it uses ETW. View utility. Okay. Let's see what other ones we have available, because I'm more interested probably in these, because I want to permanently store at least error logs. So we can store it to file. We have blob and we have application insights. Let's take a look at the file. Write logs of text files in Azure App Services apps file system and to blob storage in an Azure storage account. Okay, so we can log to file system and blob. And you can use log streaming. Locally, doesn't write local files. Or local storage blobs. So if you log it real time. And we also have the application insights. Alright, so the insights route is, I think, the most interesting. First, let's see if we have configured application insights on our app. So first, let's go to the test version. We have application insights here. That probably is available. Let's check that out. So here we have the service logs. Just configured. I always tend to forget. Oh, that's all. It's configured in the configuration. Here we have. I thought it was configured here. General settings. Where are the? Oh, here's application insights. Was it grayed out? Why is that? See in application insights, it's receiving any data. Yeah, not for the last hour because I've changed the location. Not much, right? Let's check it out for production. Here at least we see some activity going on. That's good. So how do we configure sending our log data to application insights? Is it as easy as just saying use application insights? Let's go there. Let's enable application insights for an ASP.NET Core application. Let's see. Okay, so we have already registered. Do we have the application insights ASP.NET Core available already in our app? So let's see. Where are the manage NuGet packages? Do I need to reinstall in order to see that? Yeah. And look for the installed. A lot of updates already available. So why is it taking you so long? Just need to search through the available I don't think it's available yet. No packages found. So you may want to add it. Install. Alright, so we installed it. Installed. So this is what we will add to our services in our startup. Comment is not really necessary. It makes sense what we are doing, right? So we'll want to add this to our app settings. I'm not gonna paste the key into there, so we will want to. Right, so let's specify it in this particular key. So let's go to tests, then go to the app service, go to the configuration, and then add a new application setting with this name. Why can't an application setting have? Doesn't make sense. Or we'll just use this one instead. And then we just need to get that key. So let's open up another portal window so that we can grab the key. So we're getting that key, inputting it there. Save. So now we should have set that up. And we also specify the log level to not log everything. And we will specify that in here because that's not sensitive information. How did we set it up? So for local debug, we have set it up to log debug level, and for system and Microsoft, we are logging information level. But now we are opting for default warning level, so it will log warnings or errors by default, which is good. We do not want to log information or debug level data. And then we can optimify our logger observed warning of radar automatic capture. That's exactly what we want. Okay, so that should be set up correctly, right? So we do not need to do anything with the logger, and well, maybe for developments we also want to include this instrumentation key so that we can test it locally, assuming that works though. So we want to have this value, and put it here. So let's run. And then what was it telling me about live metrics? Well, there's also a live stream. Let's go to here. Already saw live metric stream. Your app is offline or using older SDK. Not entirely sure that's correct. But my app hasn't even started yet, so let's wait for it. And it's definitely taking its time. Usually it should be faster than this. But let's give it a few more seconds. Your app is offline. It still is. It is running. And it's taking me too long. Well, let's try that again. There we go. So, did it pick it up? No. Still offline. What we can say here? We want to show CPU usage running close in real time. It may take a few seconds or minutes to actually start emitting. Or at least that's what I would be expecting. Or wouldn't it work? I have added this reference. I've added this to the configure services before the add MVC, right? Let's go to the startup. In configure services, I've added this line before the add MVC. Not sure if the order really matters, but now I've set up the instrumentation key. Did I set it up in a development setting? So it should have taken this. Yeah. Log level is even lower than warning, so it should show up. Still offline, at least I think so, but maybe we should send something. Or should show CPU usage, that's what it's telling me. So let's just send a request to test it out. Hi. Maybe it didn't actually start yet. Now it's actually starting. Maybe we just needed to send some data to it. Come on. Okay, let's try to trigger our exception. There it is. Oh. Show me some metrics, man. Come on. How long will this take? 4 have I configured something incorrectly? Or doesn't it work locally? I don't know. I'm not using an old SDK, so that can't be the case. Ah, this is the instrumentation key. I've set it up incorrectly. So let's try it again. Let's go here. Let's change the instrumentation key, and just to be sure, let's update it here directly. Save. Alright, so let's run it again. That's probably why we didn't see on any metrics. Too bad it's not telling me that the instrumentation key didn't work. Okay, so it's running now. Do we see something already? No. Well, let's just make a few test requests to it. Starting up the bot for the first time, so it always takes a few seconds. Let's try the exception again. Right, let's see if we have some data now. Alright, much better already. So it's indeed a trace from my desktop, so that's great. So we see here the exception that is simulated. Excellent. And we see request rates, CPU usage. Nice. This is what we wanted. Alright, can we now trace more details about our exception? So I go back to this logging doc, and I noticed already that there's something about logging exceptions here. So we can do a log warning. So we're talking about log exceptions, and we should be able to input the complete exception object. So let's take a look at that. So therefore we are interested in our adapter with error handler. So here we have the log error. And I think we should be able to stick in the complete exception object. So I think this is the best one. So we can stick in the exception object and add a message and then any additional properties. For now, I'm interested in the exception object because it would also give me stack trace information. Hopefully. So let's try that out. Because I want to see the stack information and probably also the inner exceptions, so they can better pinpoint where the actual exception occurred. Just the message is not very helpful, specifically if the exception is something like a null reference exception, for example. It will not give me any details on where that happened. I will not be able to find out what's wrong. So let's trigger our bot again and then trigger the exception. And let's go back to our live metrics. So 47 for statics. There it is. And now it's even giving me a better understanding of what went wrong. And this time, Excellent. So system exception. This time it gives me the stack trace, and this is actually exactly what I'm looking for. So this is the live metric stream, and obviously we also want to make sure that we can find the exception later. So how should we do that? I'm just clicking here for failures because I'm expecting. See, we have a count of 2. 2 what? Go to the exception view. Smart detection. Oh, you have browser and performance and failures. Maybe they will show up here eventually, but for now I'm not seeing them. Let's go for the top exception types. We have a system exception here. 1. This is not giving me details. So here we see exceptions. So what does this give me? So here we have an exception. Look at this. Some parsed stack. Here we have the full stack trace of the exception. Excellent. This is very good. Exactly what I was hoping for. So now we just see one. Let's try to trigger another one. So it will probably take a few seconds, minutes, not sure, before it will show up. Still giving me just one. I'm waiting for the second one. In the meantime, I can also open up the live metrics, see what's going on. It's probably just giving me because it's just collecting real-time data. It's not showing me the exception, because it happens in the past. I trigger another one. And then we would be able to see it in the live metric stream. There it is. This really worked really well, so I'm very happy about that. Still not available here, but it takes some time. And that's okay. If we would at least have the exception eventually. We'll check back in a couple of minutes and see if the other two exceptions have been added here. So for now this is fine. So I think we can conclude adding the error handling, error logging. So right now we have this adapter with error handler that when an error happens on turn, it will log the error. But now it will log the full exception, including stack trace, and it will now log it to application insights, which is very cool. Alright, so we can stop this and commit the changes that I've made, and it will include a few other things as well. I can get rid of this because that's just data generated from the dispatcher, and we do not need that. This is temporary information. Yes. Delete. So what have we changed to this? Oh, this is adding the trigger for sending an exception. Here we have made some changes for the proactive dialogues that I will immediately include as well. And here we have made some changes for the smart dialogues. What did we change with the Lewis prediction options? Oh yeah, we've added the log is true, so that's utterances to Lewis get logged as well. And that's one of the changes that we include. We've made some changes to the proactive dialogue to give it an ID. Same thing for the smart dialogue. So what have we changed here? Oh yeah, we've added an URL for the smart source. So multiple changes. Maybe so you want to usually split them into separate commits. But I'm kind of lazy today. It's Sunday after all. So I'm going to include them in the same commit anyway. Yeah, here I'm looking up the dialogues differently. And we've made some changes to the adapter with error handler that I just showed you. And I've made some changes to our custom adapter that I'm also going to commit. Alright, so that's error logging and API for looking up proactive dialogues, for getting a list of proactive dialogues. Let's commit that and sync. So there we go, pushing out changes. And this will actually trigger a build in Azure DevOps. So let's take a look at that. So here I have set up a pipeline for the API, and as you can tell, it's already queued now. So could be that there are some other builds running. No, there are none. So it's already running. We'll build our API and then it will kick off a release automatically. So I've also set up a release. And let's see, here's the API release. So the last release was on the 5th of September, and it's running in test and production now. And as soon as the build is complete, it will trigger a new release to deploy a new version to test. And then we can also try it out in the test environment. In the meantime, let's also configure our production. So first of all, I wanted to get rid of the API key that I generated because we don't need to have that anymore. I'm not able to delete that. Okay, so you can create one but not delete one. Okay, that is a weird. So I'm not able to select it, but there are some. Because if I click it, it will take me to the details page. I can right-click it and then I can do delete. Okay. A bit confusing though. Anyway, key is gone. Excellent. Then, yeah, I wanted to set it up for our production environment as well. So let's go here. First, let's grab the key, instrumentation key here. And then let's go to our app service. And let's go to configuration. Here we'll add a new setting. This is the key. And I need to have this thing here. There we go. Save. So now we would have also have insights configured in production. It will not do much yet, but once we publish our update, then we'll take to also use that. Alright, our build is finished, so let's take a quick look at our release. It's also already done, so it's sorry, no, a little bit too quick. It's still is deploying now to test. And it will take a few seconds. And then we would have the updated version on our test environment. Then we will redirect the API calls to the test environment, and we can test again. And then we should be able to tell if the exception logging actually works. So we currently tested it on our development machine. We also want to make sure that it works when running in Azure. In order to do that, I need to update the API address in our bot service, and I'm doing that from the resource group in this case. I go to the bot channels registration, and here we have settings, and currently it's pointing to my ngrok tunnel, which I have running here. So this is ngrok, and I'm now going to update it back to the Azure instance. So it was called, I believe, the company connect API dst.azurewebsites.net. So if I now save this, when I now talk in the bot here, it will actually send my message to the API deployed in Azure. But first we need to check that the deployment is finished, and it is, so great. We have now our updated version available on Azure. Then I wanted to get back to App Insights and see if the other exceptions got added that we created a few minutes ago. And they are excellent. So we tried to simulate a couple of exceptions, and here they are. Now let's go to our live metric stream, which will now connect to my app, and it should connect to my app in on Azure. So let's say hi. In this case, it should not hit my tunnel again. And it looks like it isn't, but we get hey back. So I did not see anything come through here, which is good. And we should now see requests. Here they are, coming through from from the Azure API. So let's try triggering the exception again. And here we see the exception, and this time we can tell it's coming from a different origin. So previously it would say the name of my my machine, so desktop and then some random number. This time it's also some random number, but it's probably some kind of number that they gave the Azure App Service that is running now. So it looks like this is all doing exactly what we wanted. So now we can trigger or track the exceptions that happen within our bot, which is great. And yeah, probably it's not available yet. It would be very soon. All right, so that's great. So we could potentially move this forward to our production. So let's do that. So we go back to our release, and as you can tell, it's now available on test, and we want to deploy it to production. So we go into our release and I hover over production, and I can tell it to deploy here as well. So this will deploy all these changes to our production environment, and then of course we also want to make sure that it works in production before we can actually close the work item associated with this change. So let's go to App Insights. Let's go to the live metric stream. And it's maybe still, it's already succeeded, so that went very fast. So now we have here already an exception occurred. Excellent. So something is trying to get the robots file. Not sure what is trying to get it. Maybe some internal process. Anyway, we also have set up here a reference to our production bot. So I can say hi. Oh, I need to respond still to this question. Let's try this again. Hi. So we can see the requests coming in, and I can also try /exception to simulate an exception, and we have one new exception dependency. That's not what I was expecting. Prompt user to confirm. So it's trying to do a post. Oh, that's the no response that I tried to do. So the setup for this particular dialog is not really working at the moment, as you can tell. So trying to post probably to a URL that's not available anymore. Result code is 409. Sure, what does a 409? Says codes 409 conflicts. Okay. Probably because the workflow does not exist anymore. But I do not see the other exception. Let's try that again. There it is. Not sure why we missed the other exception though. But at least it looks like it's working, and maybe we can see it later. So let's try to figure that out. So if I go here to also the insights, and I open up the let's go to log analytics. That's it. Then here on the left, I can view the exceptions. And here's already the first exception that was logged. It's simulating an exception. So the other one was not logged, maybe. Kind of weird. So I do not see this one or this one, but I do see this one at 1:11. It's local time. 11:10. So it should be around 10. Okay. Not really sure. Here's the other one. This is the one I was expecting. So the other one was logged though. Okay. So what I noticed that I was sending the simulated exception twice, but we see it pop up here just once. So although we do not see it here, it was actually tracked. So that's why we see two exceptions here. I do not know why we do not see this exception though. This is a request. Maybe that's why we don't see it. So this is of type exception. This is of type requests. So do we also have requests here? Yes. So here are the requests. And it's a 404. So can we filter on status? And there's one at 11:09. So it should be 109. 109. And here this is the request. Excellent. Okay, so that helps me at least better understand it. Oh, great. So it looks like we now have error logging properly implemented. So we can go back to our board now. And well, this should not be in acceptance, but this should now be done. And I've created a task to figure out what default error logging options there are. But eventually we have configured add insights, modified to include full exception. Perfect. Yeah, so this is cool. Then we have this bug that I also wanted to take a look at, and although we do not have the details yet of what went wrong, I do have an idea what was going wrong. So let's try to find a way to resolve that. So we have a proactive dialog. So first, maybe let me change the URL back so that we can continue to test on our local machine. So therefore, I go back to my bot registration service, bot channels registration, go to the settings, and update this URL to point to my tunnel again, .ngblog.io. There we go. So it may take a few minutes, but let's see if it already works. It should now go through. It's not yet. Let's give it a few seconds. In the meantime, let's take a look at what was it that we were taking a look at? Already forgot. We were trying to investigate that issue. So we have a proactive dialog that we can start from another dialog. So here we are in tests. Are we now switched over? It looks like it. So let's go to flow. That's where we can set up a demo dialog. So here I already have one. So if I have this demo dialog, if I say into my bots as soon as it starts responding, but it's not. Did I stop this? That's why. I stopped the API, so that makes sense. Alright, so it's now running again, so if I now say hi, and give it a few seconds to spin up. Okay, now if I type demo, it will run the demo flow. Awesome. So as you can tell, that's this hard-coded text that I have here. And now I also want to create another flow that we can actually call from that flow. So we'll just create a blank. And make a start proactive dialog. and let's input a message. It doesn't really matter what the message is. So now we have a proactive dialog, and we can start a proactive dialog from another dialog. So that's what we are going to do. And here we have a start proactive dialog. And here we can pick the proactive demo that we just created. And I want to start a proactive dialog with this user, which is the user that I'm signed in with. So now if I go to Teams and I type demo, it will say awesome, and then I would expect to say more awesome. Ah, it's already something going wrong. Okay, so that's good that we investigate that. So I was looking for this ID. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong. Oh, that's a bug. I need to look into the entity ID. That's actually I changed it I wanted to make previously. So previously I was generating a new ID each time that a new proactive dialog was created. And so that means that each time that you make a here. So each time that you save a new dialog, or if you change anything, in this case to the title, it will actually do a delete of the previous one and a create on the new one. So a change to the flow or to the trigger also meant that it's going to do a delete and a create. But I was generating new IDs each time that I was doing so. And although that works fine, if you reference this particular proactive dialog and I were to make a change, for example, just remove a letter from the title and I would save, it would get a new ID. And obviously that's not very friendly from a user perspective. So I figured out, it's actually kind of nice, that let's here in the register that Flow or Logic App will send with the request for the registration a list of headers, including the workflow ID. And the workflow ID will remain the same for the complete flow, even though we changed the trigger. So I'm now using the workflow ID as the ID of the dialog, but I had to change the query to fetch the correct dialog. Anyway, long story short, it's now saying more awesome. So it recovered itself. So now when I type demo, it will say awesome, and then more awesome from the proactive dialog. All right, cool. So now let's look at Okay. The issue wasn't exactly with the proactive dialog. It was, what was it? Yeah, it was, I think. I don't know. Let's take a look. So here we have the proactive dialog, and it has this start dialog. And this start dialog is just triggering the flow. Now, so the issue is probably in the prompt. So let's add a prompt. So that we can see what's going on with the, and I think we are using the prompt to confirm, but probably the same issue is with the other ones as well. Do you think this is awesome? And then put the conversation reference. I'm not doing anything with response right now, but it's not really important for the test that we are doing. So type demo. It will tell me awesome, then ask me the question. All right. So let's see how that confirm actually works. So this is the API that's being called in case of a confirm. So what we do, well, we specify some prompt options because we are using the regular confirm prompt from the bot framework. And we are also including some choices. For example, if you want to override the yes or the no text, you can do so. And the interesting thing, and that's probably where it's going wrong, is in the continue conversation async. Let's jump there. Here we are getting the conversation reference. So based on that ID that you input here. So we input here a conversation reference. So we pull that out of our Cosmos database. And we should ensure that the service URL is trusted. So that's just a minor detail. We build up a state so that for the bot framework, it actually is going to look like we actually started a confirm dialog, which is relevant when the user wants to respond to that dialog, that the bot framework understands, oh, okay, so this is a response to this confirm dialog. And it can also validate the response, all that stuff. So we're just leveraging the existing architecture of the bot framework. And then we are doing this conversation async, because as until now, before we are doing this continue conversation async, we're still not in the context of an actual conversation with a user. We have fetched the conversation reference, we have set up some state, but we still need to get into the context of the conversation. And as long as we are not in the context of the conversation, the bot should not be able to actually send a message to the user. So since we received feedback from people that they see the message that something went wrong, the bot must have been in context of a conversation. So the exception cannot be anywhere here. It must be happening as soon as we call the conversation, continue conversation async. Yeah, we call that continue conversation async on that conversation reference that we retrieved. And once the conversation is continued, then we call this callback and do the actual stuff. And here we are reconstructing the complete dialog state, like I mentioned, for the confirm dialog or whatever dialog it is, because that's specified here in the state that we inputted here. Then we're doing some stuff here, and the error is probably happening either these two lines, because the dialog run async, that could fail as well. So maybe these three lines, because now we are in context of a conversation. When an error happens here, it will go to the onTurn error handler here, and it will send this message: sorry, it looks like something went wrong. This is what people see. So that probably means that something is going wrong here. And I noticed that each conversation we are creating this new property accessor. And maybe we should not do that each time. Maybe this is not really thread safe. So when we have maybe 40, 50 conversations started at the same time, this will eventually fail when this call happens at the same time. So what I was thinking, can we move this particular line to happen in our constructor? And that's what I want to test out, so that it happens at least, or at most just once for the lifetime of the controller. So let's do that. So I get rid of this line here. I scroll up to the constructor, and let's make this a private. I'm not sure if it can be a read-only property, but let's try that. And what type is it? iState property accessor. Maybe you can make it even easier for me. Let's get rid of this. Let's name it like that, and then just use the refactoring. And let's generate a read-only field. Bam, there it is. Now I didn't need to think about the type that it has to be. So now that we have this on the scope level of the whole controller, let's go back down here and let's change that to be pointing to our property. And let's see if this still works. And I think if this will work, then probably the chances are high that we have fixed the issue. And if not, then we'll just run this in production and see what happens when exceptions occur, because now we have implemented proper error logging. All right, so yeah, it's running again. Let's trigger the demo again. Let's start up the bot for a bit. Awesome. You think this is awesome? Yeah, it's very awesome. Awesome. Okay, so, well, from our perspective, nothing has changed. Maybe we can test it out by simulating 50 or so calls to the API, and we should be able to do until. Will that work?
Should I dismiss my response and protect my kids? Or should I let them see my weaknesses? How will they remember me when I'm gone?
I think I want to use the for each loop because it can run in parallel. So what I can do is a for each and input some array. And let's just input the name of the user many times. Demo in Spark, on Microsoft.com, like this. Oh, that's not what I wanted. So why are you doing that? Oh. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 48 is fine. Let's get rid of the additional errors, enters. This is just for demo purposes, right? So don't do this in production like that. And of course, last comma. And maybe to make it an even number, let's just go for 50. There we go. So now we can iterate over this and let's start a proactive dialog with item. Current item, which is just the email address. Alright, so this will run 50 times, and I believe the settings are to here in Flow it runs sequentially by default. I believe that in that's interesting. I believe that in Logic apps it's parallel by default. That's kind of interesting. I've never noticed that. So let me just open up. I have already a bit better zoomed. I do not have that in this demo tenant. So let's just go into this particular dialog and let's add the control for each. And there, of course, this is a bit different because this is applied to each, which I think makes it a little bit here. For each train run at the same time or in parallel. So that's definitely something to be careful about. So of course, in parallel is great, but you need to be careful if you use, for example, variables inside of your for each and you update them inside of your for each. If it runs in parallel, you do not necessarily know the state of your variable because it may be changed by other branches, and this runs sequentially by default. And this we can apply a degree of parallelism. I think by default it's 20, so we have now 50. So no, this will run now in parallel for about 20 at the same time. Did we save it? Yes, we did now. So let's see what happens if we now do demo. It should send us about 50 these dialogues, but I should not see any something went wrong. So, and there we go. Too many requests. That's probably also something that can happen. That's something that we will investigate. How to get around that. Let's note of this issue. Without status code, too many requests. And another one. Now it's probably not happy anymore. Let's wait for it to finish. And another one. Or we need to think about throttling. Okay, I think it's done. So, as you can tell, we have a lot of successful attempts. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, about the 19th went wrong. And here we have a couple that went wrong, and then somewhere down the bottom another one. Yeah, so about 50 we had 1, 2, 3, 4 failures. And of course we cannot have that. And what has to do with that? It's unauthorized. Too many requests can also have to do with the ng-rock that I am using. Okay, so at least this is something that I could think of that could go wrong. Let's just check this in and roll this out to the test environment, and let's see if we can replicate it there. So, did we change here? Retrieving proactive dialog by ID. So let's stage this one, make it 2 separate commits. Move create property accessor to constructor to avoid errors. Okay, so we have now 2 commits. Let's push them out. Alright, so this again triggered build. And in the meantime, let's update this to point to the test environment instead of my local dev. So that was company connects API TST Azure websites .net. Save. And then give the build time to complete. Interesting to we have here exceptions. I was looking at the requests here. No, I wanted to actually go to company connect TST and then go to the log analytics to view the exceptions. And here we have these exceptions that occurred. Just simulating exceptions still. It's ordered the other way around. So error response to many requests. Yeah, so these are the too many requests error. Well, let's open up the live metrics. Live metrics, where are thou? So I need to go to application insights, live metrics stream, and then build is finished. So let's take a look at the release. That's all already finished as well. No, still deploying to tests. But in the meantime, I clicked and it already finished. Oh, great. So now we have the updated version running in tests. No, this one very awesome. Looks like it's still pointing to my local version. Okay, now it isn't anymore. Exactly. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm now going to run the same demo again, which will try to run 50 confirm prompts in parallel and see in the live metric stream here if we see exceptions occur. So let's type in demo. So as soon as I press enter, it will spam me with all these prompts. And I'll switch back to here and see if we see any exceptions coming in. So long nothing. So either it's not doing anything as it appears. Okay, so why is that? Okay, it's still trying to point to... Oh, darn. Okay. my custom connector also has the API URL configured, and I obviously also need to update that one. So let's
Should I dismiss my fast approach with my kids? Or should I let them see my weaknesses? How will they remember me when I'm gone? Should I let
Alright, so this will definitely do some more stuff. So yeah, this was now failing, which probably also means that I now have a lot of failed flows, or maybe none, because the flow for the project dialog is just not working. Okay, let's do another attempt. And let's just wait here first to see. Okay, here it goes. That are a lot of errors. Okay. That didn't do well, did it?
So reach out to it, cross the gates. 'Cause everything I am
Well, it's now sending quite a lot of messages.
Someone told me that I couldn't be myself. I would be me even more through my doubt.
I do still get that too many requests here.
Get a grip on my soul as you read on. It's harder to love me now that you can arrange all my flaws. Category, time, date, and cause. Get about halfway and pause. It's not worth it, there are so many more. I've been greedy and selfish and borderline reckless. I mostly broke promises.
It keeps me trying.
Told myself till I could feel no more breath. I'd be better than this, I'd be better than this. Only managed to disappoint myself. No one knows, so they can't force me to look for help. It's a cycle I've repeated, and my soul will put a secret. Can you keep it? It's dark out, I sit in bed. I feel asleep, dog in my eyes. Still awake this late at night. A day done, nothing to write. Some say it's difficult to find, and the words they just stay inside. How about you start at the beginning? If you woke up, go on a listen.
Still, it looks like I just get all the prompts. One failed. Oh, and this is the trigger. I need to look at this one. Yeah, a few failed. I'll probably retry it a couple of times. Turn server. Alright, okay, well there's still a lot of work to do. But I see that it's almost 2 o'clock and the Formula 1 race is starting. I believe it is. Hmm. Okay, that was the address. No, do not translate. The race was already started. All right. Perfect. So now I just missed the Formula 1 race. Come on. Why are you not playing?
Gezien.
So Bottas first.
Even hier vandaan gaat niet halen. Toen kwam Gasly te ver op het vuil.
See
Daarnaast had blijven kunnen zitten, was dit lastig geworden. En hij zat er nog naast, maar Albon had geanticipeerd.
I need to start watching the game. Alright, so yeah, still a lot of work for us to figure out. So I'm pushing this change to production anyway, because maybe the issue is just for sending a message to the same user multiple times. I can understand that there are some throttling happening there as well. Yeah, so the best way to see what the issue is to push this to production and check on Monday, when the next event occurs, what the actual exception is that some people receive. So I'm gonna leave it with this for today. Hope you enjoyed it. So yeah, it was a lazy Sunday today, so I thought, well, let's look into error logging for our chatbots. By default, it's logging to the console and to a few other places, but it wasn't logging to anything particular where I could see exceptions happened in the past, and it was also not logging the full exception, so that I was just seeing the message. So that's what we changed today. So now we're logging our errors to App Insights, and well, it was very straightforward to do actually. And then we also took a look at fixing one of the bugs that we have, but unfortunately it may be hard to replicate for ourselves. So we need to see on Monday during a real life scenario what the actual issue is. But it should be that just 1 or 2 people out of 50 get that message. And hopefully with that fix implemented, we see an improvement and no people see that exception message anymore. Or otherwise we can now take a look at the exceptions in App Insights and try to figure out what is actually going wrong. So I'm going to leave it with that for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If you enjoyed it, make sure that you follow me and check back into a next live stream. Maybe tomorrow even. So hope to see you then again, and take care. Have a good day. Bye.